What's up, guys? Going to do a quick morning video here, going over the breakdown of tonight's action, tonight's games. I'm not going to have any official plays here, but I do have opinions on, I think, all of these. We do have college football and hockey tonight. College football Friday, at least some bigger college football games, some of the bigger conferences, at least, than what you get in the middle of the week. More interesting, at least. And a couple of hockey games. No baseball tonight as the Philadelphia Phillies advanced to the NLCS again, beating the Atlanta Braves last night in somewhat dramatic fashion. A 3-1, I believe, was the final there. Not totally expected. So you have the three teams with 100 plus wins this year, the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Orioles, I believe, all just out. And this shows you that experience matters, man. Possibly more than the record does. Is now you have Houston and Philly both still in it, and I believe we might wind up with a rematch of last year's World Series, because I believe both of those teams were in the World Series last year. So I think they both do have an edge in the ALCS and NLCS as well because of that experience factor as well. You got Houston against Texas and Philly against Arizona. So I think you have the more experienced teams in Houston and Philly, and probably, I believe, they're the better teams as well. So, and I think they're both hosting those series. So I think there are edges there. The experience is definitely a factor, as we saw in the divisional series there. Those two teams do have a lot of the big game experience, and they're back. They've returned to the show, basically, to the to the league championship series for the second year in a row, both the Phillies and the Astros. College football tonight, Tulane at Memphis is the earliest game on the board. Tulane looks like they've gone up from a -3 road favorite to a -5, and it looks like Memphis has the majority of the tickets, 74%, but only 57% of the cash. So the majority of both of them, but way less of the cash than the tickets, and there's reverse line movement going against them. That tells me there are some professional bettors betting Tulane here, and I think the feeling is probably a numbers play here, I would say, where I think it's more that Memphis is overvalued, because people are going to look at it and think, well, Tulane, even though they won a bowl last year against USC, people are going to think, well, that was kind of a flash in the pan. And I did talk about Tulane in week 1 this year, talking about how they did have a lot of turnover from that team. They had some guys get drafted into the NFL, but they do still have Michael Pratt, I believe is his name, their quarterback who they had last year, who's one of the best quarterbacks in college football, really. I think that guy's probably headed to the NFL. He's still there. Tulane is a pretty sneaky team. They're pretty good still, balanced. I think people are just not used to them being a good football team, whereas they're used to Memphis kind of always being competitive. So I think the feeling from recreational bettors, they're going to look at this and think Tulane is laying a lot of points on the road here, and think that Memphis is value at home. I don't really think that's the case. Memphis, I don't think they've really done much. They beat Boise State last, and they played Missouri within 7 the game before that, which I don't know if you want to talk about that. I had Memphis +7 in that one, and that wound up being a push. I think that was more that it was a bad spot for Missouri, so Memphis was able to hang around. And that one, Missouri was coming off a big upset of Kansas State, which at that point was their biggest game of the year. Still, I think it's their biggest win of the year. So I think that was a letdown spot for Missouri. So I do think Tulane is definitely the better team here. So I think there are reasons why it looks like the guys that know what they're doing are betting Tulane and laying those points on the road. But it's gone up, through the 3.5, which is the most key number there that it's gone through, up to 5. But I would still only lean towards Tulane in that one. Stanford, Colorado, which is actually the late game, but it's on the board before the 8 o'clock game there, Eastern. Stanford, Colorado, 11.5 point favorite, 87% of the tickets, only 84% of the cash. So they're a very public team. They continue to ride that early season hype, and they did win last week, although it was a close game against an Arizona State team that has self-imposed a bowl season ban on themselves, and have not really coalesced into anything good at all. They played Colorado tight in that game, which I talked about in my video last week, I think, that I thought Colorado was kind of in a bad spot because they mounted that huge comeback against USC, made that look closer than it really was. They played Oregon and then USC, which were both big games, even though Oregon destroyed them. It was still like a big effort, physical game. Coming off those two games, I thought Colorado was in a bad spot. Kind of coming to like a down, maybe like a flat spot against an Arizona State team nobody pays attention to. Colorado only beat them by 3, which I think pushed like what the closing line was. So Colorado had been like a 4.5 point favorite for a lot of the week. So Arizona State did cover most of those numbers, I think. Now you got Colorado as a double-digit favorite against Stanford, and I believe Colorado has UCLA and Oregon State coming up next, so 2 more ranked teams. So it is possible this is a look-ahead spot. And I don't think there's any value to be had on Colorado anyway because they're still riding that hype. They're 4-2 now, and they won against Arizona State. People are going to say, yeah, it's against Stanford. They're no good, so Colorado should be able to score a ton and like take them out. I would only lean to Stanford though, even though it's plus 11.5, but it looks like the market read would go that way with a little bit less of the cash than the amount of tickets on Colorado, who is very public, and I like to be contrarian anyway, which tends to be beneficial more often than it isn't, to go against where the majority of like at least kind of the majority of where the money is, if it's that high a percentage of the money there. But Colorado, I think it's a look ahead with UCLA and Oregon State on the horizon. Plus, they're just overvalued based off of the early season magic that they had, the fact they have Coach Prime, people like their offense, whatever. So I'd only lean to Stanford plus the large amount of points there. And Fresno, Utah State, we've seen a lot of movement here. Fresno looks like they opened -7, and they've crashed down to -4. With 77% of the tickets on them and 65% of the cash, so less cash than the tickets. So again, here, a discrepancy in the money and the tickets there, and reverse line movement, all in the direction of Utah State, really. So that leads me to believe that there is professional, smarter money on the Utah State side there. And I think, it might have something to do with the spot. Fresno just suffered their first loss. They were undefeated. They lost to a Wyoming team that has been playing fairly well, even though that was an upset pulled off by Wyoming. But even so, that's like Wyoming's been a decent team. That was kind of a big game for both of those teams. Fresno suffering their first loss, losing that undefeated season. It's possible they have like a little bit of a hangover going into this, and they have to face Utah State, who's kind of like middle of the road. On the road, that's like, and laying points, that's kind of a tough ask for Fresno in a spot like that. And Fresno is UNLV next, which UNLV, you never think of them as like a football program, but they have a good record this year too, like better than Utah State. So I don't know if there's any sort of like look ahead there. You wouldn't really think so when it's UNLV as a football team, although they have made like a bowl at least once in like recent years. But that all aside, I think Fresno losing that first game of the season there, it's possible there's like a hangover effect there. The market read definitely says Utah State, but the 7s, of course, are gone. It's down to 4. I would still only lean to the Utah State side there, getting the points, but that's the market read there. It looks like the professional. It looks like there is professional action going on. There is like a market read to be found on, and possible situational angles to back up all 3 of those sides in those college football games. Tulane minus the points, Stanford plus the points, and Utah State plus the points. We got 2 NHL games, 2 hockey games. You got the Devils as like a pretty big favorite against Arizona, who everybody knows that the Devils have been playing like pretty good the last couple of years. They've been a pretty good hockey team. Arizona, not so much. They've been one of the worst teams in hockey. This has crashed down, though, from the Devils, -250 on the money line to -228, and they've got 73% of the tickets, so it looks like 53% of the cash, actually, on the other side, on Arizona. So that would have me leaning to Arizona there. And if I were to play this, I'd probably be playing the puck line, taking Arizona plus 1.5 goals in the game at whatever. I don't know what the price would be on that, but I would do that and then just sprinkle a little bit on the money line because asking them to actually win as an underdog that's that significant is, I mean, I think there is still value on Arizona there on the money line, of course, if I think there is value on the puck line, but it's more likely that you're going to win a bet taking them to cover the puck line, and there's going to be value on both of those. So it's more like I would turn it into kind of like a spread type of bet almost with like a little bit on the money line there. But it looks like, yeah, the money is driving the price down on New Jersey. It's on Arizona. New Jersey played last night, so they have back-to-back, although they didn't travel. They were at home. And I don't know who they played last night, but the fact that they're in a back-to-back, it's not like the best spot, really. It's kind of a disadvantage. They beat the Devils, which is kind of a big, and they beat them 4-3. Or, sorry, the Devils beat the Detroit Red Wings, I'm sorry, which is kind of a... it's a big win, and they won. It looks like, they were up 4-2 really late, and it looks like Detroit cut it to 4-3 in like almost kind of garbage time with like 30 seconds left after New Jersey. New Jersey was winning by 1, and they scored an empty net in the final minute and a half or so, and then Detroit actually scored on a power play, it looks like. So it might have been a power play plus having the empty net at that point, so a 2-man advantage. Detroit was able to cut it back to 1 goal there. But either way, I think Detroit's seen as like a fairly decent team, which I think they were last year, so a big name team for sure in hockey. So that's kind of a big win for New Jersey, a bit of a big win there. That was last night, and then they have to play again tonight on the back-to-back against an Arizona team, which is like, who cares about Arizona, really? I don't know if I'm talking myself into any of these plays here, because I do at least have opinions on all the college football games and on both of these hockey games. So, yeah, my opinion would be to do something with Arizona on this one, just because New Jersey's in the back-to-back, and, it's not the greatest situation for them there. And then the other game, Pittsburgh-Washington, the Penguins at the Caps. It looks like this has like a big money to ticket discrepancy as well, with Washington 67% of the tickets, but 82% of the cash on the other side on Pittsburgh, driving them up actually from -115 to -120 on the money line. A money line road favorite on Pittsburgh, so the books are telling you Pittsburgh is the better team here. They're a favorite even though they're on the road, and I think the general like feeling amongst like recreational bettors here, recreational guys that just kind of do this for fun, they're going to think, hey, this is like a competitive matchup. Like Pittsburgh, Washington, they're both usually like decent teams. They play like pretty well, both of these teams. So we're getting Washington as a home underdog. That looks like there's some value there. I would tend to think the opposite about it, looking at the market here and the reasoning for why Pittsburgh might be a road favorite like that, where it kind of looks almost too easy to take Washington, getting like a plus number at home, getting an underdog money line price at home. Washington, I believe they haven't played yet this season. I believe this is their home opener, so it is the case that might like pump them up, because it is like a big game when it's your home opener. You have the Penguins coming in. They're known as, a perennially good team pretty much. So yeah, Washington could have motivation because of that for sure. But also Pittsburgh already having a game under their belt this season, that could like help them out like momentum wise a little bit. They don't have to come into this game like cold with like the opening day nerves if there might be any to be had or whatever. They've already played one game, so, and it's a new season, so there might be like some chemistry that you need to be like developing and whatever. And having played a game already is helpful with that. And what did Pittsburgh do in that game? I believe they were at home and they lost 4-2 to the Chicago Blackhawks, who are seen as like one of the lesser teams in hockey this year for sure, whereas Pittsburgh is not. They're seen as definitely a better team. That was a fairly significant upset that was pulled by Chicago, and they did it, 4-2. So people could be down a little bit on Pittsburgh, just overreacting a little bit to that one result and think, well, maybe Pittsburgh's not as good. Like if they lost to Chicago, like are they really going to have value as a favorite on the road against Washington, who should be better than Chicago? I think that's kind of the way like recreational guys might think about this, but I think that's kind of a wrong way to think. I think if anything that, might that having played a game is going to help Pittsburgh gain a little bit of momentum, a little bit of traction, and the fact that it was kind of an ugly, bad loss at home. Now they get to just get out of there, focus on hockey, play. They get to readjust. I think it's helpful. I would lean only to Pittsburgh in this one. So those are my feelings on the card tonight. 15-minute video in the morning. Awesome. But hopefully that's some good information. My leans that I'm just throwing out in the morning, just looking at the market on all these games have done fairly decently. So I guess I'll just keep doing it. But have a good day. Enjoy all the games, man. Peace.